Hello all, Jesse Owen DeBiase here from Singing Dragon Analytics. Today I wanted to talk to you about a few pieces of music that I've had stuck in my head the past few weeks. First off, since we're only a few days from Christmas, we are well into, if not actually in the tail end of Nutcracker season. As a result, Tchaikovsky's perennial classic has been dancing its way through my mind the past several weeks. However, that's another story. Now, I don't want to talk about the classical forms which define traditional ballets. Rather, I'd like to speak more generally about how Tchaikovsky's masterpiece is constructed and how it stands up against my own understanding of the interaction between music and narrative, which I developed both through my research and through my own work as a film score composer. Now, first off, what is a ballet? In its most basic, generalized form, a ballet is an extended piece of music composed specifically to serve as accompaniment to a ballet production. Now, from this basic definition, we can arrive at two generalized forms of ballet. First, you have a narrative form, one in which the characters, the dancers, act as actors, basically, and in which the music tells a story. The other form would be more of what I would call a recital form, one in which you have a series of pieces of music that don't necessarily have a specific story or have some sort of broad stroke story, but basically serve as an excuse to present a series of very beautiful or very interesting works of dance. What's interesting about the Nutcracker is that Tchaikovsky's ballet exists in both worlds simultaneously, or rather, it exists in both worlds in immediate succession. The first act is a classic narrative ballet. You have a story, there are mainly actors on stage, or at least the ballerinas act as actors, portraying characters, and taking you through the entire first act as you see the night unfold at the party, and eventually as Clara goes to sleep, and you have the fantasy dream sequence with the rats and the fighting and the Nutcracker prince and all that good stuff. The second act then follows basically as a recital ballet. You have, even though you still have a general story, it is in essence a series of individual numbers, one after the other. And the dance takes forefront against the narrative. An interesting phenomenon results from this dual structure. In essence, you end up with ballet companies that do either an excellent first act or an excellent second act, but usually you don't have them both together. Now, that's not 100% true, but it does stand up to the test. The things that are required to perform a narrative ballet are very different from the things that are required to perform a good recital ballet. Now, looking at the first act, as I said, it's a narrative ballet, so you want a very theatrical approach. In fact, one of the best productions I've ever seen of the first act of the Nutcracker is from a local dance studio in my hometown. Now, this production is spectacular in part because the artist who choreographed the first act has a musical theater approach. He has a musical theater background, and he brought that sensibility when he choreographed the first act. As a result, the action feels very visceral, the story is very interesting, the pacing is good, it doesn't slow down. Unfortunately, if you don't have that, sometimes the first act can feel that it drags itself out and becomes just so many set pieces or so much parading and promenade. Now, the second act, by contrast, requires not only highly skilled dancers, but a large number of highly skilled dancers, and a very lyrical, majestic approach, as well as, and this is what many professional companies sort of tend to lean on, a sense of grandeur to it, which is often brought about by large set pieces and lavish costumes. Now, this might explain some of the reason why the Nutcracker has become so popular. Aside from its general Christmas atmosphere, the second act presents, for local companies and for dance schools, an excellent opportunity for them to showcase a large number of their students and a wide variety of dance styles, or at least a relatively wide variety of dance styles. Now, balancing these two aspects, as I said, is hard, and I, not being a choreographer, would not necessarily be able to tell you the best way to do that. But it does stand to reason, as I said, that you need someone, or most likely multiple someones, who can dance along that fine line between telling a good story and presenting a good dance. Now, the second piece of music I wanted to talk about was the score to Westworld. This is, of course, HBO's brand new series, which they've been marketing as the next Game of Thrones, which I'm not sure it's quite that, but it is an excellent show. Very intriguing, very fun to watch, and of course, just a few weeks ago had its season finale. Now, the music in Westworld fulfills several functions very well. It is the same composer who composed the Game of Thrones music. And it has a quality, at least at the start, that fits very well with the atmosphere of the film. You begin with this main theme, which is mirrored in the visuals of a player piano, it's a roll piano. So right away, we're seeing connections, spoiler alerts, connections between the music and the essence of the story. Westworld deals a lot with time and cycles, and the music is set up like that. From the visuals and just the idea of a player piano, you get these scrolls which go around and around and around and around. They don't necessarily go back to the beginning, but they can be reset. And as you're looking at them go through the piano, it looks like they are going over a turning disc, because it's essentially what they are. You stretch out the paper on two cylinders, and it is turned and passes over a series of vents which read the holes in the paper. So there you go, a little bit of a lesson about how player pianos work. Now, also the player piano, because of its connections to the Old West and saloons and this sort of thing, and also this sort of tinny, slightly out of tune sound of an old school player piano, fits very well in with the atmosphere of the Old West. The melody itself also has a almost cyclical feel to it. It's sort of this churning accompaniment underneath a very interesting melody. Now, what strikes me about the score, and I should say that that what I'm about to say is based on a single viewing. So I'm sure that when I go back and rewatch it with more of an ear to the music, less so than just enjoying the story, I will pick up on things I missed. I might even find that some things I'm about to say may be incorrect, and I most certainly reserve the right to change my mind. But this is my initial impression. And specifically, my initial impression as relates to that player piano scroll and the way it changes throughout the series. So throughout most of the series, you have this same player piano, which keeps on showing up over and over and over again in various episodes, often multiple times per episode. In the final episode, however, and massive, massive spoilers about to follow, so if you haven't watched it yet, you might want to pause now. In the final episode, just before the final speech, or just during the first half of the final speech, as the hosts are coming to their own, as we are finally confronting, and as Ford is finally confronting the consciousness of his creations, and as the machines are coming to their own, you have another player piano. However, the music's changed, and the way it's changed is very interesting. It's still a player piano, and it still has a little bit of a Old West feel to the music, but suddenly, after you get this, I believe it's a 4/4 rather traditional accompaniment, and the melody's about to come in, but just before the melody comes in, you get a bit of syncopation, and you think to yourself, oh, that's weird, that was kind of jazzy. And the music from there continues in that same way. It becomes, although it still has that connection to the Old West and the player piano, it becomes jazzier and it becomes more modern. So it's as if in the music you are mirroring the awakening of the machines and mixing their West world with their new modernity and their new technology. So you're mixing sort of more contemporary, more jazzy, more syncopated music with the instruments of the Old West and with some of the older melodies, which are now, or at least hints at the old melody, now reconfigured into a modern sense. So I think it's actually very cool and a very interesting twist musically to accompany the interesting twist in the story itself. So those are the two things I wanted to talk about today. Hope you found that interesting. A few updates before I go. I'm about to leave on vacation. I'll be flying back to visit my family for a few weeks, so that might mean one of two things. It might mean I'll have more time because I don't have to worry about work and things like that to produce videos for you. However, it might also mean that I'll be spending lots of time with my family, and as a result, will not have time to produce any new videos. In either case, do keep on checking back on the channel. There will be lots of new videos to come in the new year, and I think you're really going to like the content we have lined up. So that's that. I wish you all a very happy holiday season. To my family, if you're watching, I'll see you very soon. I wish you a Merry Christmas if that's the holiday you celebrate. And to all, I wish you a very happy New Year. So long.